Hi, it's Paula. This is the Common Book Show. And man, do we got a lot of people today. We've got Richard and Jill and Sanford and Jason and James. And we have Nessa.
We are Legion.
We are Legion for sure. Well, and today we have Herodotus. I just want to read a short passage. I don't think I'm going to have a lot of I'm not going to read the longer one because we got a whole lot of people here. Okay, so Jason was nice enough to help me pronounce a word that I'm going to try not to butcher. Okay, so we're talking about customs of the Maserati.
Masagetai.
Masagetai. Okay, Masagetai. Okay. Each marries a wife, but they have their wives in common. For that practice, which the Hellenes say that the Scythians have, is not in fact done by the Scythians, but by the Masagetai. Masagetai. That is to say, whether a man of the Masagetai may desire a woman, whenever a man of the Masagetai desires a woman, he hangs up his quiver in front of her wagon, and they have sex freely. They have no precise limit of age laid down for their life, but when a man grows very old, his nearest of kin come together and slaughter him ceremoniously, and cattle also with him, and then after that they boil the flesh and banquet upon it. This is considered by them the happiest lot. But him who has ended his life by disease they do not eat, but cover him up in the earth, counting it a misfortune that he did not obtain ceremonious slaughter. Hallelujah. Okay, that was my contribution. I'm liking this way more than Plutarch, so that's what I'm reading now. Anybody think it would be fun to be ceremoniously slaughtered as an old person? I mean, some of us are probably in the age range right now.
The dead only know they're dead. So I mean,
that's true.
That if you get slaughtered, you get slaughtered, and if kosher.
That's true. I think I would be. I think it would be interesting if I knew that people were going to eat my body after I died. I was looking for a place where they would make me into a work skeleton. I wanted to be one of those skeletons hanging in a doctor's office.
Well, the last one, actually, it's interesting you mentioned that. The last nation that did that was India, and in 1986 they stopped doing it because they finally realized it was not dignified.
Well, the problem with it was, and I didn't know that because this was in the 90s when I made this decision, and I found out that that's the only place they do it. They only process animals in the United States. They put them in a box, and they have all these flesh-eating bugs that eat
and they
them.
Clean it.
They clean the bones off. And so I thought, wow, that's the coolest thing ever. Then I'll just be hanging in somebody's office. And then I figured, if they send me to have to send my body to India, who knows if that particular skeleton's ever going to come back. But I mean, I was upset because that's really what I wanted.
So you wanted it regionally?
I thought maybe I could talk somebody into throwing me into a vat of
acid.
But that would eat the whole thing.
I didn't want to do that.
Well, no. What's the stuff they do for septic
me.
tanks?
Septic tanks?
Yeah, they put live things down there to eat.
That's just more bacteria that, but
that would work.
But I don't know because they're geared on what they are because maggots keep a wound clean unless they're blowflies, and blowflies will eat live tissue. But or screw flies will eat live tissue. Blowflies will only eat the dead tissue. So it's very specific. It's a microcosm. It's a biome.
I hope I have you around if I ever.
Two things.
Greg needs to know what to put in the bathtub. That'll work.
Well, that was they actually did that on Breaking Bad. They said put plastic in the tub because what are tubs made of? They're ceramic or they're what they're cast. If you use hydrofluoric acid, it'll just eat it. It'll consume it and just burn it out.
Wow.
And it's just straightforward chemistry, but. We had a skull when I was in med school, and I remember the professor saying this person was of high stature in India because there was gold that was inlaid in the teeth. They weren't gold teeth, but there was gold like flake in the teeth, and you could see it.
Huh.
But also Madeleine Murray O'Hare, when she got murdered, the noted atheist, when she got murdered, whoever it was burned her body, and they identified her from the serial number on her hip replacement.
Wow.
Because titanium or stainless steel won't burn in the fire. The fire won't get hot enough to melt them.
So, Paula, did you read Nancy Drew books when you were younger?
No, I didn't read anything when I was younger.
Really?
I didn't read anything. I didn't start reading till I was in my early 20s. I prided myself on the fact I had not read any books except for Oedipus Rex and Flowers for Algernon.
Richard, when you were like
That's a sad
in
one.
your 20s, what did you read?
That one's awful.
Herman Hesse.
Yeah, well, I loved all that stuff once I found it. I didn't know books were interesting. I thought books were boring. That's what I was always told as a kid.
Really? Your parents said that?
My parents didn't go to high school. My parents they had to go to work.
Yeah,
during the
but you
Depression.
could still read. Learn to read.
My mother would read tell-all books.
Okay.
You know, and my parents, they were very blue collar, and they believed that you didn't get ahead by reading, you got ahead by hard work, and so we were not encouraged to read.
Oh, my mother was a speed reader, and she pushed books on us.
Yeah, well,
I'll never be able to read as much as she.
It was different.
did.
It was a different. For me, it was just the way it was, and none of my friends. I grew up in Lovejoy. None of my friends had books at home. No one. The most.
Yeah, it's a Lovejoy thing, all right.
The most you would see is maybe a Look or a Time magazine, and that's it. No, there was no. If you read, you were weird. People thought you were weird, and they would stay away from you because you were weird.
Yeah, but they still thought we were all weird.
Same in Riverside.
Yeah. I think Riverside is like a big Lovejoy. That's how I always thought of
Yeah,
it.
it's a real stupid place
Yeah.
overall. Yeah.
Very uneducated. Like I said, my
Brutal.
parents were thrilled that my sisters graduated from high school. They thought that was the end all and be all because from their life, their parents hadn't gone to school at all, and they made it through grammar school, and then their kids made it through high school. So
And back then, they had to pass tests to graduate from high school,
yeah, well,
not just show up.
Certificate of attendance is very important.
yeah. So I mean, I'm glad that I got introduced to books because I only did it on a dare. My first book I read on a dare.
Which book?
So you never even were interested in comic books? Didn't you ever see them at the
I
store?
did
or
have
anything?
comic books, but there's comic books come
That
on.
was more of a
Dot. I had Dot.
boy style thing.
No, comic books can be really intellectual. A lot of
Well,
the
no,
like
but-
Marvel stuff.
But not that stuff I didn't read. I read Dot or Richie Rich or
Yes, Archie comics.
I liked
Pops
the
the
Archie.
Devils.
Archie. I had Archie.
Fantastic
Oh, the
Four.
Archie ones have some real
didn't have
demented
anything like
covers.
that.
The old ones.
Yeah. So it's a different way of being. And then when I got some of the first book I was dared to read was The World According to Garp.
My mother was really into that book.
Well, the guy gets I'm not sure if he gets his penis just bitten or bitten off.
Well,
is it bitten off?
I only saw the movie. I know the book was more detailed.
Well,
I didn't
you
read
could
the
guess
book.
either one. You know, it's like complete or not. It sucks either way.
Depends on the perspective.
there's a
Well,
a
it
pun
doesn't
in
if it's
there.
bitten off.
There's a- yeah.
What
So
did she swallow?
I'm
It looks like a sausage, so
yeah.
Well, in the
How
lore
about
of
how
the
about when Lorena Bobbitt cut off her husband's penis and threw it out the
you ever
window?
see the
So I used to
porno
like
tape
the
that he
old
made
40s
after that?
detective books.
Yeah, but
Like when I was in my
We're
20s.
still in
Yeah.
Bobbitt.
Like
Bobbitt.
Kerouac.
yeah.
Well, Bobbitt is lucky as hell that they found that and they were able to sew it back on. I mean,
Yeah, you ever
seriously.
see the video he made after that? He made a pornography video.
Frankenweenie?
Oh,
yeah,
God.
like Owen
That's
Gleiberman.
crazy. Look, it's all weird and it's got stitches. It looks like it really looks like the Frankenstein monster, and he can barely ejaculate.
Oh, that's what they call
Well,
it, Frankenwiener.
And Owen Gleiberman of Entertainment Weekly said it looked like what they sewed on. They cut off a section of it to put it on here.
It's all at an
John
angle.
Bobbitt is not that well endowed.
Well, anyway, okay.
And his
let's-
wife was found innocent of malicious wounding.
Not guilty. Not innocent. Not guilty.
Like OJ.
So, Richard, to get us off of the severed penis track here,
Hey,
Well, we
didn't bring it up.
we could ask Sanford. As far as you know, are there seniors who are not graduated because they failed the test, or do most of the seniors just get promoted?
Yeah. Graduation rates are a problem.
Oh, so that you can flunk out as a
Yeah,
senior.
you can. Yeah, as a matter of
It's
fact,
very difficult.
I was assigned this year for the first time a course called AIS, which I believe means Academic Improvement Service. Okay, and what it is glorified tutoring for students who have failed one of the Regents exams. So you can flunk out, yeah, and attendance.
Well, you can't get a
also.
Regents.
Well,
You
no,
can't
if
get a
you-
Regents diploma unless you pass the Regents tests. And they have to attend school for a certain amount of days. If they're gone for
Regents-
20 days in a row, they can be expelled.
I got a story about that. Back when I was in high school, there was this one student who was a holy terror, but his mother was on the school board. But he was a good swimmer. Like, you know, he had his own skills. He was also in the gifted program, but he was just his behavior was horrible. He missed so many math classes that you could miss 25. He missed 31, and the teacher didn't tell him until he showed up for the exam. Said, you can't sit for this exam because you've missed too many classes. She could have told him beforehand, a week before, 2 weeks before. No, that's the kind of kid he was. And his mother couldn't do anything about it because it was statutory.
The weird thing about Regents exams is that nobody outside of New York State knows what they are, and they don't really mean anything to anyone, especially outside of New York State.
New York State is phasing them out as a graduation
Yeah, they are. They're getting rid of
requirement.
them.
Yeah. So that's going to be coming down the pike in the not too distant
how do
future.
you feel about that?
Well, it used to be you could get a Regents
Well-
diploma or just a standard diploma.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay with it because when I went to high school, I think I got a perfectly good education at Maryvale. I graduated in 1982, and you had a choice. You could either go Regents or non-Regents. I went non-Regents, and it worked out okay for me. So,
Yeah.
you know, I don't think everyone should be forced to take a Regents
No, I
diploma,
don't.
right?
Yeah.
Course, yeah. So,
We didn't have I went to Catholic school, so we either took the business track or the college track.
yeah. The other thing about Regents exams, and I'm not going to go on about this for long, but if you look at these fucking things, they're idiotic. I mean, the final exam questions on those tests are really stupid, and whoever invented, and if you're listening, Albany, I think the people out there should be arrested, honestly, for creating these tests. They're really stupid. I mean, I could give you reasons why I think they're stupid, but some of
What
the
are some reasons?
questions are difficult for teachers to answer, not because you don't know the information, but because they're so bizarre
They're badly
in the way
written.
that they're
They're obscure.
worded.
Badly written,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's extraordinary. Well, for example, one of the questions that they ask, they'll give a kid a document, which is long. You know, it's a lot of gibberish that you have to read, right?
Yeah.
About a historical period. And one of the questions that they commonly ask is, explain in detail how the audience affected the content of this document. Now, for you and others sitting at the table, that might not be a difficult question to answer. But for a 15 or 16-year-old kid, it's an abstraction. Why not just ask them, you know, what's the context of the document, or what's the purpose of this document, or what is their perspective?
Yeah,
That makes
I
sense.
agree with that.
But something that is so off, it's difficult, and it's very difficult to teach that, to get kids to think that way. And that's just one of many examples that.
What did you think of the New York State mandated reporting thing?
Oh man, that was the way they rolled that out was
They could have
awful.
just done 2 laminated sheets and
Yes.
handed them out to everyone.
I agree. Yeah.
And you would have known more, and it would have been
Yeah.
right in front of you.
Yeah. Well, not
Did
those,
yours show up and teach yet?
Well, I can't even get into Teach. New York State Teach is a website, and we were recently told that you could lose your teaching certification if you don't do
You
this.
can lose your job
you
if
can
it's
lose
not
your job
uploaded by April 1st.
if it's not uploaded by April 1st, that you took this extra, 2.5 hours at least of videos that you have to watch in identifying
It's mandated
mandating reporting child
All
abuse.
policemen have to take it,
yeah,
nurses,
right,
doctors,
right.
anybody
Everybody
that-
who works for the state in that.
that works with anybody under 18.
That's right. There you go. Thank you. Very well said. And it was rolled out very quickly and abruptly and suddenly, and people are having difficulty not only navigating the website, but you must yourself upload that you got
it
your
takes 2
certification
hours just to sign in.
To sign in. Yeah, that's right. And then you have to load that information onto New York State Teach, which is their website.
And they're really slow.
And when I tried to get in to check prior to April 1st, which is coming up.
Yeah, Tuesday.
Tuesday. I couldn't even get in, so I had to call the state, and they told me, "Oh, we have your information. It's okay." Well, how do I know it's okay? You tell me it's okay, but I can't get in to see it.
Yeah.
So it's very nerve-wracking for a lot of us. So thank you for bringing that up, Jill.
But
Yeah.
What's interesting is
it could have been a laminated sheet.
It could have been.
I've gone through
should have
this
been.
every 2 years because every state has it now. That it started with some, and now it's become much more regimented. But I have to do it through Pennsylvania every 2 years, and it's the same thing every time. And you can either pay one that you do at your own pace, so you get done in 5 minutes for $60, or the free one that's completely interlaced with the state. I just did it. I didn't even fill anything out, and the state had it. I just renew my license, and they say we have it. I didn't have to do anything. I mean, just watching these cases, but I did them at double speed, and it didn't stop me from doing that. So that's crazy.
Well, this is a brand new thing this year.
Yeah.
And
They started it about September. They really told most of New York State by December.
Yeah, it was late.
And only the teachers have the.
Are you teaching now, Joe?
Where's the audio?
She doesn't want to answer that question. Okay, next.
Fifth Amendment.
do this. You can do this. Really.
So, Richard, you had really kind of deferred back to answering the question. Tell us what's on there.
Thank you again for your subscription to the New York Times.
Oh, you're welcome. As long as my mother-in-law still can read, I'll still have that subscription.
So Mick is joining us. Hello, Mick.
Hi, Mick.
So there's an interesting article in the New York Times about they pointed you to this website, and people can type in thought experiments.
Okay.
I looked through all of them. I thought it was fascinating. Here's some of the ones that I thought were the most interesting. Tell me how you would answer this. There's a way to cremate someone and put their ashes into a vinyl record.
Oh.
So if you had to be turned into a vinyl record, what songs would you want put on that record?
The ones I wrote.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean,
Smoke,
I have.
smoke
They
gets in
were
your
really
eyes.
good.
I don't want to set the world on fire. We didn't start the fire.
Some G.G. Allen songs.
burning down the house. Yeah.
Disco Inferno.
What about you, Paula?
Well, since I still want to, and I haven't done it yet. I want to do a video for my funeral, where we do more cowbell.
Yeah, we definitely have to have cowbell.
Yeah. So I'd want to do "Don't Fear the Reaper." You know.
Great song.
And
That is appropriate, isn't
yeah.
it?
And
Yeah.
it would be I give out copies to everybody at the service.
Well, if you go first,
Yeah.
I'll play the extra cowbell for you.
I got a good
Well, no,
song.
I want Richard to record me sitting here while I'm still alive and I'm still happy.
You want to do the
I
cowbell.
want to do the cowbell, and then I'm going to pass out cowbells to everybody in the
That
audience.
would be freaking awesome.
I thought so.
That's a good song. A good song would be "Ashes to Ashes" by David Bowie.
So, yeah, you could have death-themed songs.
Yeah, yeah. I really. But
I mean, on South Park, they did a song, "Dead, Dead, Dead, Someday You'll Be Dead." That would fit.
yeah,
Here's another one. What would you rather have this power? Which of these powers would you rather have? The power to speak every language in the world fluently, or the power to pick up any musical instrument and play it like a virtuoso?
Instrument.
Instrument for me.
Language.
And I would be language. How about you, James?
I'd probably go with language too.
Yeah, I think I'd like to. I think the language thing, the Tower of Babel language thing, would be fun.
But you could see the other side of the argument. If you can play like a virtuoso, you are communicating.
You are communicating.
Yeah, it's a form of language. It
And
is
you
a
can make
language.
people
Definitely.
happy or sad.
And also, music is a universal language. You can communicate with everybody.
Yeah, I agree with
With
that.
one language.
I think it's a tough call for me, but I think I would do the language just because, there's so many people you could communicate with.
Sanford, you could read Marcel Proust in French.
I can. That's okay. He's tough enough in English.
À la remembrance de ton perdu.
À la recherche du temps
Oh,
perdu. That's right.
recherche de
Yeah,
ton
yeah.
perdu.
In search of lost time.
Yeah. So
J'oublie mon
Did you,
erreur.
did you ever have an incident in your life where you said, "Oh, this is bad. Oh, this is bad," and then in fact it turned out to be to your benefit?
Yeah. Teaching psychology.
oh
'Cause
yeah.
I was really pissed when they assigned me that
I
course.
know.
And now it's like really enriched my life, so it's pretty awesome.
It was
Yeah.
a challenge.
Yeah.
It was a
Yeah.
challenge. Yeah. Well, a lot of times when something ends, and then you always think that that's bad, something better happened. I mean, it happened to us when we were making the movies. Like when Paul Galvin quit.
We all quit.
We ended up. Well, no, that was we ended up getting who.
Jack.
Yeah, and I mean we had such a better movie because of it. So, things like that do happen. But I think that having that experience over and over again, where something ends and you feel really shitty, and then something new pops up.
Pretty much the definition of serendipity. Nobody can hear you.
Yeah, you got to grab a microphone there.
No, he's got.
He's not plugged in.
It's all right. I don't have to speak, so.
Tom, could you turn him on?
For some reason, he's not.
In what way?
I'd love
okay.
to.
I'm sorry I worded it that way.
tell
Could you make sure the
you
microphone plug is plugged in and the toggle switch is
Toggled.
Toggled. Yeah.
toggled? Okay.
Toggleated.
I had a particular acting industry person who blocked me getting an audition on a movie. I
Stormy Daniels.
serendipitously ran into some of the producers and pleaded my case. They said, well, we can tell that you're very talented, but you don't look the age of the person that we're casting. So we probably wouldn't have cast you even if you got an audition. However, months later, I got a phone call. They remembered me and cast me in a different movie.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, because you reached out and you asked about
Adult
the,
cinema?
Yeah. Oh, stop.
Just because I met the hedgehog doesn't mean I worked with him. But
James
Ian,
is a superstar.
I actually got 2 films out of that situation.
Well, that's good. That's good. I mean, because you made yourself memorable. That's how that works.
There's actually a funny bonus feature to that story. One of the producers told me that he was campaigning for me to get a particular film, but if he lost the argument, they would go with the regular Hollywood thing, and the movie wouldn't be as good. And I'm like, how do I end up making a difference in this film? I'm nobody.
Yeah.
And he says, well, they're looking for someone
So
who's
you're not
not
in
a
SAG?
name. And so you're fine because they're looking for somebody who's not already established.
Yeah.
So this could be your breakout role. But the way the story works, it hinges on a certain bit of believability that this rich kid will do anything to get himself out of this mess that he's gotten himself into. And with you, the plot's believable because, racially speaking, it's believable that your family is the richest family in your family. So you have no one to go to. But if they go the normal Hollywood route, the movie's not believable because that kid can just call grandpa and say, could you forward me X amount of money and I'll work for the firm for free over the summer?
There's no rich white people in my family, James.
If you are a rich white family,
oh yeah, I see.
Then odds are there are other rich people in your family.
It's true.
Most likely older people. So you can call grandpa and say, I need you to get me out of this jam with mom and dad, and this is how much it's going to cost, and you tell me how to make it up to you.
Yeah.
And that will probably happen. But with my complexion, it's believable that we're the family everybody else comes to bail their ass out. So he lost the argument. I didn't get the part. I didn't think anything about it. 2 years later, some friends tell me we're all going to this movie, second run theater. And it was a movie that I wasn't interested in because it sounded stupid to me. 20 minutes into the film, I'm like, this is the movie. I was up for this part. Yeah, right. As Tom Cruise slides across the archway. That could have been me.
Oh, God.
Now, the funny thing is, years later, I'm looking at this, and someone says, could you get out a picture of you that year? So I get my high school picture.
Yeah.
And then I randomly pull up a picture of Tom Cruise from the film. And we're making the same damn expression in the picture. And I'm like, oh, now I see it.
Oh, you know what? Now that you mentioned that, I should have brought a copy of my. I don't think you have a copy of my second book. I gave you that on.
Oh, the one with the writing?
No, not the poetry book.
Oh, right there.
No, not that one. The one photographic memories. I think I gave it to you electronically.
Oh, I think you did. Yeah.
Because there's a picture of my friend Al in that book, and that picture that you showed me, you look just like him, and that's the character we based his character on. My friend Al in Sweet Jesus.
Interesting coincidence, James. I never knew that about you. I didn't know much about your acting background, and tonight I heard that same story from Richard as we were having a meal earlier, and now I hear you confirm it. So that's pretty great. I told Richard, and I mean this, I'd rather see your version, and there's still time. So that's
We're taking donations so we can redo that film correctly.
Oh. Okay, so Jill,
Hi.
it's about books.
Okay. Yeah, books.
What are you reading?
Today, nothing.
Wait, you haven't been reading anything?
I've been listening to audiobooks.
Oh, that's the same. What are you listening to?
I'd have to open the phone to find out.
So they really
I
made
can
an
tell you
impact.
I can tell you about the stories. I'm really bad at names.
Yeah, I'm bad with names and names of characters. I could read a whole book and love it and not know the name of the main character. It's terrible. But I'm listening to Little Women.
Oh, The Divorce Party was one of them.
I'm listening to Little Women right now
I don't
because
know if you'd like it.
it's another book I didn't read as a young person. So I'm reading all these young person
We had
books.
that series that I never read it. That
Little
was
Women?
another one my mother loved.
Yeah. Well, I decided it was my next one, and that's all I've been doing is listening to children's books young adult books online, but
Green eggs and ham.
But I'm reading this, which is going to take me forever. This one's actually much better than
Plutarch.
Plutarch was really, really bringing me down.
Well, it was like incomprehensible.
It's just it's bad translation. They could translate it better and make it better.
Well, what's wrong with a run-on sentence that's like 2 paragraphs in length, but it's one sentence,
Well, Henry James does that too, but they're readable.
Proust does that, speaking of.
Yeah, long sentence.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
yeah.
were very fashionable for
Yeah.
a while.
If it's well written, I don't mind it.
Yeah, I don't mind it either. It's just that when the words just seem to be word soup.
Yeah, and you
Speaking of
can't
well
make any
written,
sense of it.
Richard wrote something today about a well-written sentence.
Oh, you want me to
I would
mention
like
what that is?
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
like to hear that.
I'm always on the lookout for good writing.
Mm-hmm.
It could be anywhere. and this was in an advertisement from a nursing home. Tell me if you agree with me. We specialize in helping those suffering from the maladies of a lifelong march.
Ah.
Sounds like somebody used a thesaurus online.
Poetic for a nursing home advertising.
Yeah, it
What's it
really
even
is.
mean?
Yeah, that says that,
Well,
that life is pain, Highness. Anybody saying anything else is trying to sell something. I guess it's the same thing. Life is a malady. Well,
When I see that sentence and read it the first time, I thought somebody should, the good old-fashioned advertising agencies that actually knew what worked and why. And they should have hired one.
Well, no, I think that if a person that's looking for a place to be, who is older, like that age group, that is going to bring back the memory of good writing or that kind of writing from like John Steinbeck and Hemingway and all those people, and that's going to hit a chord. Maybe that's their target
This
audience.
is the sentence.
Are you saying that's classic or classist?
I love a well-worded. Okay, this is a form.
If life is a malady, then what is the cure?
From the malady? No, it says suffering from the maladies
What
of,
is the
of
cure,
a
Jason?
lifelong
Hemingway.
march.
Hemingway?
Death.
Hemingway, eat a gun.
Eat a gun. Well, that death. Eat a gun. Yeah, I'll go with that.
I feel like they're trying too
praising
hard with this
suicide?
thesaurus.
No, but he's.
I don't know. What maladies?
Oh, I thought it was James.
The word maladies?
What is the
The
solution?
maladies of a
If
lifelong
life
march.
is a malady, to cure it, to the sharp cure, but a sure one for all ills. That was
think
what
it's kinda
Sir Walter
poetic.
Raleigh said when he looked at the axe.
I think it's trying
Or was
too
reputed
hard.
to have said, "'Tis a sharp cure, but a sure
Oh,
one."
I think it's
for
a
all
little,
ills.
I think it's poetic. She thinks they're trying too hard.
I think they're trying too hard to say, if you've got a family member that's like aching and a pain in the butt and like in high pain, and by the end of life, send them on over.
I agree. It's
So
like
they can
it's like-
nab their
it's like-
social
it's-
security check.
It's like they're saying we're not looking for perfect people. We're looking for ordinary people.
Yeah, but the thing is,
They
I
can't
think
afford a
I think this
law.
would I think this would speak more to the person going in than the person putting them in.
Oh, good point. Another well written sentence that I came across just today. Victor Hugo was a madman who thought he was Victor Hugo. Can you explain that one?
What happened?
Yeah, I have. He's a
Looking glass self.
yeah. I don't know. Maybe.
What imposter syndrome?
Well, you got to understand something. Do you know what Alexander Pushkin is to Russia?
Yes.
Mark Twain is to America?
Yes.
That's what Victor Hugo is to France. Mm-hmm. In other words, when he died, thousands and thousands of people came to
So
see
is-
the casket and everything,
Yeah.
So he knew when he was alive how famous he
Yeah.
was. So
Yeah.
that's what this is saying.
Right. So he's just. Yeah, and imposter syndrome. I think that might.
Well, it depends on if your imposter syndrome has a negative connotation, like I'm not really who I am. That.
Yeah, that's
people,
why they call them imposters.
No, the imposter syndrome is like somebody who graduates from residency and says, "I'm not really a doctor. I can't do this. I'm not who this is." They feel like they're the imposter. They shouldn't be there because they're not confident
Right.
in their own
Wait.
ability.
Somebody's going to figure me out, and they're
Yeah,
going to know
and-
that I'm not talented.
And when you're in the seminary, 7 years,
Mm-hmm.
when you start the 7th year, they make you wear the collar.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the students said it freaks you out. Suddenly, they don't treat you the same when you go to the Sunday meal at your parents.
Never. That is even. I'm not religious. I see somebody with one of those collars on,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Hello, Father."
Yeah, I stopped cursing.
I mean, can you see how people
Yeah.
would treat you differently when
Yeah.
they saw that you? And I think they do that to get you used to it.
Yeah. Or
And-
make you like it
Or
because you get treated specially.
because the flip side is that Victor Hugo is an institution. He's not a man, he's an institution. And so the madman is filling the part because that's the only one who could do it.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know,
yeah.
that.
Did Lewis Carroll write that?
No, I just came up with that extemporaneously.
Oh.
But that's the thing, that somebody that more human than human. You know, that
Yeah,
the man
bigger than
couldn't
li-
do
bigger
it, but
than life,
the
yeah.
madman could do it, but not the man. The Ubermensch could do it.
Oh,
not-
it's then the opposite of imposter syndrome.
yeah,
Yeah.
with the positive
Only a
connotation.
madman could pretend he's Victor Hugo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
It's heavy.
and so that's what it's like the idea of what the some writers were saying, that James Bond isn't a person, but it's a role that everybody fills. That's why you could have somebody who looks different but has the name and has the story and keeps going on, like the Phantom in the comics, that they think it's the same guy. Well, it's 18 generations. He's not immortal. No, they just all
Yeah.
keep going. And so
They
that's the
based that
idea.
on Lassie.
Yeah. Lassie wasn't the same Lassie.
Correct.
Yeah. So, Sanford, you're a reader, like I read
Yeah.
crazy stuff that
Yeah.
nobody else wants to read. What are you reading right now?
Trauma and the Soul. And forgive me if I can't think of the name of the psychologist who wrote the book. It's a series of case studies about people who have suffered severe trauma and dissociate from the trauma for self-protective reasons. And it talks about the self-care system in the mind. That, for example, there was a child, and this is a real study, a real case. Her mom said, "Hey, would you give Daddy this letter or this note," because he's in the other room, right? And the daughter came back, and she still had the note in her hand, and Mom goes, "What's wrong?" She says, "The angel won't let me go in." And okay. So she goes, "Go back, give Dad the thing." And she says, "She still won't let me in." And she went back a third time with the mom, and the dad was dead. Now, the idea is this angel was conjured by the child. It's not some supernatural creature.
Right.
Right? It's her way of protecting herself from the reality of her father's death. So
Yeah.
she invented the angel because she didn't want to confront the reality of her father's
Yeah.
death. Right?
But what if there was really an angel?
I'm a skeptic, but
Have you ever
know,
seen a real angel, the
but it's-
biblically accurate angels?
Oh, I know.
I have
That's-
not.
Yeah, they're
that's-
Oh, look
scary.
up biblically accurate angels.
That's one of the stories. There's a couple. Some of the art that he uses in the book to illustrate this concept of the self-care system of the body and how there's a conscious and an unconscious part of the body. There's this one Inuit whalebone carving. It's actually brilliant because one eye is wide open and the other eye is shut, and that symbolizes the idea that part of the human mind is conscious, but another part of it is unconscious, and that's also a part of being human.
Yeah.
And there's this really apparently famous painting by a painter I'd never heard of, Henriette or something, and it's beautiful. And I can't remember the name of the painting, The Child and the Angel. And the angel is covering the eyes of this naked child as if, don't look.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
This, so it's like the mind's way of dissociating
Yeah.
from trauma, which is a very common thing.
I know all about
right?
it. Yeah.
So, right.
That
So
whole
it's
eye
the
thing.
self-care thing. So it's a
Yeah.
fascinating book. I'm sorry,
What-
Jill.
yeah, what-
Go.
That eye thing.
Yeah.
Phillips Burke's paintings. He always has one that goes in and one that's out.
Really?
You know who I'm talking about,
I do
right?
know who you're
local,
talking about.
but
Yes,
international.
I do. Okay, but I'm not. I'm trying to.
The eyes are always, one's supposed to be like looking inward, one's supposed
That's
to be outward.
fascinating. I wonder
So-
if there's an influence there.
Did
know,
you get?
Well, there was from something,
like
I don't know
archetypes,
what.
Yeah.
He's
like
spoken of that before.
yeah.
like Jung talks about
Thank you.
archetypes, and maybe that is an archetype that one eye open, one eye closed.
He's a Jungian psychologist, so there's
Yeah.
a lot of reference
So
to Jung in
are
the
you
book.
reading it because of the course you're teaching, or were you reading it as a self-help
Yes,
book?
no, yes and no. I as a teacher of psychology, I'm always looking for new stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
there's this guy giving a podcast, and he said these are like 5 psychology books that really had an impact on me. And when he mentioned that book, I started doing some research, and I was so impressed by what I had read about it, I ordered a copy of it. I wanted a hard copy so I could actually I'm only about a third of the way into it, so there's still a lot
Yeah.
more to go. So I'm not an expert on the book, but
Yeah.
it's very fascinating, and insightful and thought-provoking and good stuff. The other thing I guess you could say I'm sort of reading, this might be mundane to everybody here. There's a guy, a YouTuber, his name is Rick Beato, and I think he's arguably the best music educator on the internet. He's fantastic. And he has this music education course. It's like a four-part course, ear training, music theory. He's a guitarist and a pianist, and I think he plays a few other instruments and some other aspects of guitar playing that would bore you. But he was offering this course at a big discount for like $89, and it normally would have been like $500. And I've been following his channel for a long time, and I'm going through the material, and it's mind expanding. It's really great stuff.
That sounds
So I
good.
know you have a degree in music.
I
so
do, yeah.
Was the music theory at Villa as good as
Not
or
even
Buff State?
close
No?
to what I'm learning
So
from
nuns couldn't
from
do it?
No, nuns couldn't do it. Not as good as Rick Beato. Yeah, it's really great stuff. And he's interviewed. When I told a friend of mine whose name I'm not going to mention because I don't like to say unkind things about people publicly at all, so I won't, but he's a great musician, not a very great person. When I mentioned this guy's name to him, he was very dismissive.
That could be anybody.
And since then, Rick Beato has gone on to interview, because people see his channel and how good he is, Sting, dozens of famous people that you would know that I just can't think of off the top of my head. Al Di Meola, the great guitarist, he's done 2 interviews with him, and they're brilliant interviews. Like this is like the gold standard. Richard, I think, would really admire the way he interviews people because he listens. Who's the great music producer who did the Johnny Cash, the last Johnny Cash album, AC/DC? Rick Rubin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rick Rubin did an interview with him, and Rick Rubin was so impressed. He interviewed Rick Beato, and it's an amazing interview. It's just so good, and it's such a the conversations that he has are so excellent.
It's amazing the stuff you can find on the internet.
He's an
It's
excellent
it's
interviewer.
like we're in an information age now,
yeah.
which is, I
So
mean,
when you were at Buff State, you took
Yeah.
music theory or
No.
music history with Chuck.
I didn't
Joe,
because when I got
Mancuso.
because when I got to Buff State, I stopped music, and I went into history.
Oh.
Because I felt like it was a dead end professionally, and I felt like I wasn't going to be able to do anything with it. So I was kind of at a loss. I took a year off after Villa, and then I went to Buff State. Because actually, remember Dan Lewis?
Yes.
Dan Lewis was a history major, and he suggested to me, hey, we are both musicians. We both have an interest in history. Maybe we could get into teaching. So I kind of followed in his footsteps, and, it was the right decision in the long run. But no, the music since then, I've just kind of done on my own.
Okay, I didn't know what your major was there.
Yeah,
It's
history.
just there was this history book of music, Chuck Mancuso's. Do you know it?
I don't know that book.
He's local. He used to
Okay.
hang out at Coles, and he was a professor at Buff State.
Okay.
And everybody was forced to take that class. I took that class.
Oh, wow.
But all the music majors were forced to. I had to take like an upper level history class.
I got it, yeah.
That's one of the ones I took.
Okay.
And I was wondering, as a musician, what you thought of like.
Yeah, I wish
his
I could.
point of view.
I wish I could comment. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, trying to get everybody in here. Nessa, do you have something that you wanted to talk about?
Well, other than the rise of fascism, which is what I always like to talk about that.
Yeah, I know.
Right now, I'm reading the Before the Deluge. It's about Berlin in the 1920s, right before Hitler came to power.
Well, it's probably a good thing to read right around now.
And this delightful one is up next. The Pink Triangle, the
Wonderful.
Nazi war against homosexuals.
Oh boy. So
So
from the
it's very
library.
relevant to now. So I like to read about stuff from pre-World War II Germany
Yeah,
lately.
it's a lot of history does repeat itself, and
It is,
and
yeah.
unfortunately, because of the way our education system is, people don't.
Nobody knows because nobody knows history.
Nobody, right? It's kind of
In my class, they do.
Yeah, and Sanford, but I think you're an exception, and I also think that
Yeah.
I think that people try to get away with as little as possible, the students and the teachers.
Yeah. It's true.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And so
there is truth in what you say.
And really, honestly, teaching critical thinking would be so important. And I think
do.
you are able to do that in your class situations,
Yeah.
and I applaud you for that, because people are just not getting that information. They don't know how to think for themselves. They just see things online, and
They're trained to not think for themselves by the very way the education system has been laid out ever since Rockefeller.
Absolutely.
I have a good video about that.
Yeah, it was. I think I've seen that video. It was designed by the robber barons to keep people just smart enough to do the work for them, but
Yes.
not smart enough to figure things out for themselves. And also, all the things that mind things that you can.
Thinking.
Entertainment.
Bread and circuses.
Right, bread and circuses. Very good. Very, very
We
well
just
said.
talked about that in my class. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just and alcohol and drugs, they contribute to that, to keeping people in line. And so I don't know, when they took
Especially
alcohol
alcohol.
out of the system, I think they realized at some point that was a bad thing to do, even though people were getting their alcohol illegally.
It's really good for dulling the mind.
It's very good for dulling the mind. Yes, it is. But so
As opposed to some psychedelics, which are good for opening and expanding the mind.
yeah, I told that.
Some are.
I told that story about my trip to the Albright Knox and looking at art and seeing things that I didn't know were there, and then going back straight and saying, shit, how come I couldn't see it before I took the drug? I was very upset with myself. It's like, why couldn't I have seen this without the drug?
Opens neural pathways
Well,
sometimes.
I guess. I don't know. I was pretty young at the time, but
Your brain can connect to itself better. A lot of indigenous cultures have done it for ages.
yeah, they do. They use it for ceremonies and higher. I don't know. You're shaking your head no.
Well, it's kind of hit or miss, though.
Yeah.
You know that, sure, if you shoot a gun into a crowd, you're going to hit somebody, but you don't know who you're going to hit. And you don't know what pathways you're going to open, and and how long it's going to stay with you. Therefore, since you don't know what you have, it's like going to a restaurant and saying, "Give me something to eat." Okay, it could be a lobster. That could be the arm of your grandfather.
Or it could be one of those tribal guys that get killed.
Yeah, or it could
Better
be
than nothing.
a gummy bear. You know, it could be a piece of bark.
Yeah.
You know, you give me something to eat, and so you don't really know what you're getting. You know, because what was that story about? Was it the Persians would look at an idea and then they would look at it drunk, and if it made sense both ways, they would enact it. That's really distilled down.
Yeah,
That was.
I remember reading about that, in this book.
But generally, the great ideas you have
Actually,
when
it
you're
was-
high or drunk really aren't that great at all. Think
Yeah,
about the people
they're
that
not.
get.
Sometimes they are, though.
Most of the times
Occasionally.
they're not. Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes a broken clock is right too.
I've tried psychedelics, and
Twice a day.
I wonder how enlightened one really becomes. Because if you think about it, the Inca and the Aztec used psychedelics, but they also practiced human sacrifice. You know,
Yeah.
Well,
And
we
also-
practice human sacrifice in a different way.
in a
this
different.
culture.
Fair enough. But I don't think I've ever met anyone who used a lot of psychedelics that I would say, boy, I want to be like him. They really got their life. They really got it together. They really figured it all out. You know, I haven't met that person yet.
Yeah,
So-
I think it's
Yeah.
it's something like you say. I mean, I happen to do mescaline, and it happened to give me some insight into some art that I'd been looking at for a long time, and I'd never seen those things in that art before. But I wouldn't suggest it as a regular thing. I mean, I don't know. People go out in the desert and do ayahuasca or whatever, and I don't know what I went to a like the Indian thing.
Sweat lodge?
Yeah, thank you. I can never. I always want to say smoke lodge, but it's
Well-
not. There's not smoke. There's steam. So I did.
Not a yurt.
Yeah, I did that, and I felt like it was something that helped me. In the same way. Do you know what I mean? It was like a.
Well-
Yeah,
it
it can
was
help. It can be helpful, yeah.
an emotional experience. Similar to doing mescaline, you know.
Well, it reminds me of that joke about smoking pot while listening to the Grateful Dead, because when you're not high, you say, "What is this crap?"
Well, it's a, yeah.
Shakedown
Well,
Street is
actually,
pretty damn
weren't
good.
they more mushrooms and acid, not pot?
Who, the Grateful Dead?
The Deadheads.
Yeah,
Jerry
I
Garcia
don't know.
was
I
anything.
never liked the
That was more
Grateful
about
Dead.
tripping.
True story from 70, 80 years ago. It wasn't pot. It was the pot.
Yes, the
Pop.
pot. Yes.
The pot. So smoking the pot. And now if you say it, people get, you know. That
You're on the pot.
Depends on what neighborhood you're from. Sometimes sometimes people will.
Things are always
Say
better
things
when you
like
put
that.
thought in front of it. Like the
It-
band, the what or the who.
Yeah, the Dead. In fairness
Dead.
to the Grateful Dead, I never particularly liked the band, but a friend of mine, Scott Bachman, was obsessed with the Grateful Dead, and he traveled everywhere to see the Dead. So one day he said, "Let's go to a Dead concert." So two good things came out of it. One, I started learning how to eat healthier because he made all these stir fries that he would sell. So I started making all these stir fry vegetables. And the second thing is and I was not using drugs. I actually loved the concert, and it was infectious because everybody was dancing. And I mean every single person in the crowd.
Yeah.
I've never been to an experience where you became such a part of everybody that was
Yeah.
there.
Did you drop acid?
And I did not take
that's-
any drugs. I wasn't. It was sober
Yeah, you
because
don't
I was
have
the
to- well,
designated driver. I remember that.
Try a
And-
Taylor Swift concert.
and-
Same thing, really.
yeah,
But not-
maybe I haven't been to a Taylor Swift concert. I don't
But
know,
those
but I
live-
enjoyed
yeah.
it. It
Yeah.
was fun,
Yeah,
and I
but
wasn't
I've
really.
heard about
She's
it.
yeah.
a pop
Heard
star,
that.
and they knew scales. They knew jazz scales and blues scales,
Right.
and that's all they
Garcia
did.
knew
Yeah,
everything.
that's true. Yeah.
Bluegrass.
Well,
Jazz.
those live
He really
performances.
loved music.
Well, they basically
if you
played
really
scales.
get connected to it, it changes. I mean, you become part of a thing,
What
a
you
larger
do? You
organism.
lose your ego. You kind of
yeah.
surrender. There's a term for that, and I forgot what it was. You know what it is, Jason? You
No,
seem.
no, I'm
it's
thinking-
it's
You know
a
everything.
it's a term that like you lose yourself in a crowd, and it's really a great. It's I can't think of it. Doesn't matter.
The only thing that comes up is mob mentality.
No,
but-
it's not mob mentality. It's something else.
See, I
It-
just-
It's MAGA.
It's
I just-
something
MAGA. There you
ideation.
go. That's it.
It's what is it?
I can't remember
MAGA's
the
mob
first word, but
mentality.
something ideation.
It might be. I
Yeah.
think it might be ideation.
But
Yeah,
when-
but I'm not sure. I can't remember.
When Jerry Garcia
The only
died,
idea
how could
I
they tell?
can think of is suicidal.
Yeah.
It just means that you get, like you said, mob mentality, but it's
see if I
more
can
on
look
the
it up.
point of like, get
You
a
sort of
bunch,
connect to each other, like through the oversoul. You sort of-
it's-
get enough grasshoppers together and you get locusts.
It's
That's the
bigger than
idea.
Yeah,
that. It goes
well-
back to like tribal cultures where people
Yeah,
would
yeah.
put a mask on and you would just become
think-
something else.
And
Like,
that's how. That's why music
Yes.
was pop. People did trance out.
Are you
with
talking
all
about
that
2020
music.
again?
They need something to believe in. That's all.
Yeah, and it's a great. That's why people go do those drum circle things. I mean, you become like a one entity, and it's a
Yeah.
cool experience. I that happened to me at Celeste Lawson poetry reading. It was Al Tinney was playing the music behind her.
Oh wow!
And I was at the library, and I was like, I elevate. I was like levitating. It was, and I was like, wow. And I wrote a poem about it because it was amazing. It was like I'd never had that happen at a poetry reading before, but it was amazing. It's such an
not even a
that's why
Jim Prey
people-
poetry reading.
No, people go to church for that. If they can hook into whatever that is, that's what they get out of church. I think, especially a lot of these churches that.
Oh yeah, like the Southern Baptists and stuff
Yeah,
with
but-
all their holy roller stuff and their snake handling.
I think Catholics, Catholic, if you're in the right, listening to the music and getting, feeling.
Catholic music's awful. They forbid
Yeah.
counterpoint, and the melodies are really
They forbid-
dreary, and they're
they
intentionally that way
forbid
to dull your
counterpoint?
mind.
Wait a minute, I want to
What,
go
you mean
get
like
back
diminished
to,
notes or
It's
something?
against the Catholic canon to have counterpoint.
Are you kidding me?
No, it is. Catholic hymns can only have one melody, and it has to be really boring. They have these rules and constraints on that, and that's part of, because if you have too much counterpoint, you're really going to stimulate the mind, and they don't want that. They want to stimulate your mind in in the opposite direction, so you're easily influenced by their dogma and
Well,
doctrine.
don't you think they're trying to have you in a meditative state so they can brainwash you?
In a
Well,
way, yes,
they're already
maybe
brainwashed when they
that
get
could be
there.
a component.
I
They
got the
don't
term.
want too much mental activity, but they
Oh.
want just enough.
Sanford found the term.
Hold on, we have
It's called de-individuation.
Okay.
Is the opposite of the
De-individuation.
Jungian
So you become a
individuation.
member of a group
Yeah.
completely surrendered to that identity
Yeah.
instead of your own ego.
MAGA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, there you go. It is. You're right.
Yeah.
It is MAGA.
And that's
But
why
that's
they go
why-
to those. That's why they go to Trump rallies because
You
they,
don't fight with
they
them
get
online. They all have
something.
the same stock comments. They never have a creative new comment. It's the same comment over and over and over, like the world is healing, or the other one, common sense. They always have the same stock comments, like 1,000 times over, trying to find a true, thought out comment from one of them that isn't a stock catchphrase is near impossible.
Well, because you're not. There's not a lot of
There's no thought.
individuation.
Yeah, they're all de-individuated.
They're
Yeah.
de-individuated, but you know it. But it is there's something comforting about that for people who don't, who are afraid they don't have a lot of themselves. They don't know who they are. That it's easier
Right.
for them to grasp onto what other people are and become that. That's why cults work. And this is very
They-
similar
And that's a
to
cult.
a cult.
That's
yeah.
a cult.
People need something to believe in. And
Yeah.
so that's why they say, hey, I don't have, and there's no color to my jersey, so I like the color of yours, so I'm going to color my jersey your color, and then that's,
And then the emperor has no clothes.
okay, that,
Yeah, because the emperor, everybody had to believe this thing because otherwise they would be stupid.
yes.
So and when the kids looked at him and said, "You don't have any, you're naked."
Why is that man naked? Yeah,
Yeah.
from the mouths of babes.
Yeah, because they didn't know the rules of. They didn't care if they looked stupid. They didn't understand. But yeah, so we've got like 5 minutes left, 4 minutes left, and anybody
children-
else have anything that they wanted to talk about?
James, when you went to the Kiss concerts, did you get that feeling of de-individuation?
I couldn't answer that question.
So who was your favorite? If you were going to dress up as the 14-year-old you, if you're going to dress up for a Kiss member for Halloween, what Kiss member were you going to be?
The 14-year-old me would have been Ace Frehley.
Okay, what about the 10-year-old you?
You have to get to an adult before it changes. The adult
Okay.
me would be Paul Stanley.
Okay. And why did you switch from, well, he was an alcoholic and a drug addict, to a successful man that even played Phantom in Phantom of the Opera on Broadway?
And
I
doesn't
think
have a
you-
left ear.
James went
He's
to
had
a,
it
he went to a Kiss
reconstructed.
concert in a sequin jacket, and Gene Simmons pointed right to him, right, James?
And threw me a towel.
Well, I think on the Grammys, Gene Simmons called Billy Manspeaker his bastard child.
The
Wow.
guy from Green Jelly or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Green Jello. Yeah.
Green Jello.
They changed it back to green Jello. I think they were allowed to.
Oh,
no,
that's
it's
right.
always been
No, they're not allowed to.
what they did was a
I've seen
cheat.
it spelled as Jello recently in a bunch of promo stuff,
Right.
whereas it used to be the Y with the umlauts,
Yeah.
which meant you're supposed to still pronounce it as Jello.
That's the point. They got around it by using the umlauts. So
And
visually
I thought
speaking,
it
looked
reverted
different.
back because I've seen stuff with the O again.
I don't know. I just
I don't
remember
know.
making
Recently.
green Jello when I was 12 years old to go throw at them when they were performing.
I made green Jello. I
We
made
used to
green
walk in
Jello
with a
in high
band with an old guitar
Yeah.
case, a hard guitar case. Well,
I gotta tell you my green Jello story.
Green Jello.
But it's
Okay, go
really
ahead.
green Jello. Okay, I made green Jello. You know those old 50s sort of aspic casseroles
Oh,
from
God, yes.
Yeah,
They
well,
put-
we had an
people put
art
'em
opening
on.
at my high school, and
Yeah.
I hated my high school. So I made all this weird food, and one of them was green Jello casserole. And I diced up potatoes so they looked like apples, and I put onions in them. I put all these really awful vegetables in there to look like fruit. So, like, when people got it, it was nasty. I brought pepperonis too and pretended they were pepperonis.
Well, I think you're kind of nasty.
Well, I have to say,
I am nasty. I'm real nasty. I'm like Rick James
I have to say that
or Vanity
I'm glad I didn't go to high school.
or Sabrina
for
Carpenter.
that.
They're all nasty. I'm real nasty.
The lunch.
I'm as
was-
nasty as I want to be, like Luke from the Two Live Crew.
Books.
All right, so we have 1 minute and 16 seconds. Richard, you have something short and sweet?
Like Sabrina Carpenter's album.
No, you don't.
Good album.
Okay,
What's the name
so
of it?
how about if everyone just says goodbye. We could all
No,
say
we got
goodbye.
a minute. Oh, don't waste that minute.
I know. Well, I don't. I'm
Oh.
completely. My brain has completely.
This is why
fried.
Oh,
we
here's
used to
something.
dance
I
at
have
the
a
end of Greg
sentence.
Shirley shows.
That's right. Go ahead. Who said what?
Capitalism has not endured through force. Capitalism has
Okay.
not endured through force. However, as income inequality grows, it might be getting there.
Oh, I don't know what's going to happen. I had these.
Revolution.
I had ideas about something I could do to rebel, but I
Do it.
may. I'm still thinking about it. And
Any little thing isn't nothing.
I know.
Thank you.
I apologize. Goodbye.
Let us say goodbye.
I apologize.
Apologize for what? What do you do?
I'm so.
Just
Bye,
trying to be
everybody.
kind to the audience.
I'm filled,
Time's
Bye-bye.
up.
I'm too filled with words.